I'm called Alex now, though at birth I was named Alexander. My early years were spent in Russia, but when I hit my teenage years, my parents decided it was time for a fresh start. We relocated to the United States so I could chase better opportunities. The transition was intense. I had to master English from scratch and adapt to a completely foreign culture. It wasn't easy, but with time, I found my rhythm. I earned a degree, secured a stable job in tech, and felt like life was finally aligning. That's when I met Linda, an American woman whose views were incredibly progressive. Initially, I admired her open attitude and willingness to challenge the norm. However, as time went on, some of her beliefs started to cross lines I wasn't prepared for. That's where this tale really kicks off. We'd been married a few years, and I honestly believed things were steady. Linda's modern ideals about liberty and self-expression were a bit much at times, but I mostly went along or ignored the extremes. I wanted us to make it work. We experimented occasionally, role-playing, playful games, all in the spirit of keeping our connection alive. Then, just before our anniversary, she surprised me with a conversation I knew would shift everything. She wanted to talk. Experience taught me to brace myself. With a nervous tone, she said our marriage needed new thrills. My heart sank. Linda had suggested wild ideas before, but this was uncharted territory. She proposed bringing a third person into our bedroom, specifically a guy named Jeff, one of her friends from yoga and activist circles. To say I was stunned doesn't cover it. Essentially, she wanted me to watch, to become a cuckold, while she shared intimacy with another man under our own roof. For me, as her husband and as a man, that was beyond unacceptable. I fired back questions. If you can invite some stranger into our bed, why can't I bring a woman? She squirmed. Alex, it's different. Then, trying to soften the blow, she said, maybe I could consider inviting someone later. It was clear. She was grasping at excuses to justify Jeff's role. I've always believed marriage is a partnership, a rock-solid team where we protect each other. I worked hard to build a career that would support us both. Meanwhile, Linda had drifted into fringe lifestyles, meeting people at activist meetups, attending strange workshops, reading blogs about progressive relationships. Jeff? From my viewpoint, he was trouble, a typical zealot obsessed with freedom and alternative living, always mingling with Linda's activist crowd. I started suspecting they'd already crossed a line, and this threesome idea was just a cover for a secret affair. I said no. Flat out. But Linda kept pushing like she wanted me to accept this was normal. Inviting a stranger, or at least a stranger to me, into our marriage? Absolutely not. That day I realized if she was determined to sleep with Jeff, our future was doomed. Divorce seemed the only sane option. Anger boiling, I decided to play along, not because I agreed, but to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. Fine, I said through a forced smile. If this is so important, let's do it. Linda's face lit up with excitement as she laid out the plan. I pretended to be interested, asking probing questions. Why Jeff? He's just a friend, right? You don't have someone else in mind? Her smile flickered. Well, yes, he's a friend. We hang out a lot, share interests. He's a good guy. I thought he'd be perfect. Her nervousness confirmed my doubts. There was more going on behind the scenes. If this was our final act as a couple, I'd turn it into a show they'd never forget. Over the next days, we worked out the details. I insisted on starting with dinner to ease into it. Linda was ecstatic, practically glowing. She went, all out, bought toys, costumes. She showed me a black leather dominatrix outfit she'd wear, and a latex superhero suit for Jeff. I told her I'd stay in normal clothes, playing the clueless husband, and laughed as if warming up to the idea. She clapped her hands, thrilled. You don't know how amazing this night will be, she said repeatedly. Trust me, it'll unleash your creativity. I nodded, pretending to agree, but secretly, I was plotting. I rigged the house with hidden cameras, living room, bedroom, kitchen, hallways, even outside. Every angle, every sound recorded. If this was my last move, I wanted evidence of every humiliating moment. Saturday came. The house was cozy, snacks on the table, candles for ambiance, a bottle of wine waiting. Linda went out to fetch Jeff, giving me half an hour to finish my setup. Once she left, I poured a tiny sip of wine, just to fake a toast, then dumped in a hefty dose of laxatives, enough to wipe out any pretense of control. "All right, let's see how you handle this kind of intimacy," I muttered to the empty house. That wasn't all. I locked the bathroom from the inside, then squeezed out a tiny window and closed it behind me, blocking any access except by force. "Sorry, no relief for you," I said with quiet satisfaction. I left a note on the counter. "Work emergency, server, meltdown. Won't be long." Then I drove a few blocks away, ready to watch the live feed in peace. 10 minutes later, Linda and Jeff arrived. She was buzzing with excitement. Jeff followed, tall and skinny, wearing a tight turtleneck and a thin mustache that screamed trying too hard. Honestly, he looked like the stereotypical nerd you could shove over with a nudge. Linda saw the note and called me immediately, frustrated. "Alex, are you serious? You left? What's going on?" The work crisis was a perfect cover. I feigned a tired sigh. "I'll be back soon, but you two can get started without me. If you really can't wait, I might just surprise you walking in on your little party, just the way you like it." Linda laughed, clearly delighted by the idea that I'd suddenly found some enthusiasm. "Finally, Alex," she said, excitement crackling in her voice. "I told you this would get your creative juices flowing. You're going to love it." After hanging up, I turned back to the live feed. They'd settled comfortably in the living room. Linda looked calm and at ease, while Jeff sprawled out on the couch like he owned the place. "Man," Jeff muttered, crossing his legs. "Alex actually went along with this? I thought he was too straight-laced for all this kinky nonsense." Linda gave an awkward little smile, clearly a bit defensive. "Jeff, he's just open-minded and trusts me. Yeah, he's pretty conservative, but that doesn't mean he isn't a good husband." I clenched my jaw, torn between irritation and amusement. There they were, right in front of me, live and in full color. Jeff tossed out some cocky one-liners. Linda tried to downplay it as innocent flirting. Eventually they poured 2 glasses of wine, clinked them, and sipped delicately while nibbling on cheese and fruit. They started whispering about their first meeting at yoga, complimenting each other's bravery for diving into this experiment. More wine followed. Soft music played, and they began slow dancing, getting progressively more touchy-feely. I rolled my eyes at the screen. 2 wannabe adult film stars performing a steamy scene for themselves. Then Linda suddenly remembered the costumes. She dashed upstairs and returned fully decked out in tight black leather, looking like she'd stepped straight off a cheesy 1980s fetish set. Jeff struggled into his latex suit, ending up looking like a bizarre hybrid of a deep-sea diver and a sad superhero. I almost burst out laughing but kept a straight face, fully anticipating what was coming next. They were just about to start their role play when Linda's expression twisted in pain. She clutched her stomach and mumbled, "I need a minute," before heading toward the bathroom. Sitting in my car, I rubbed my hands together, thinking, showtime. Jeff, oblivious, poured himself more wine, clueless about the disaster about to unfold. A moment later, Linda's voice came from behind the bathroom door. "Jeff, the door won't open." Jeff reluctantly got up, waddling over in his tight latex suit. He tugged the doorknob, huffing and muttering, but the door stayed firmly locked. His frustration grew into desperation, and finally he snapped, "Just bust this damn door down." Trying to be the hero, Jeff stepped back and shoulder-barged the door, but instead of crashing through, he bounced off and collapsed in a pathetic heap. I nearly choked from laughing so hard. Then came the unmistakable loud sound of a fart. Jeff doubled over, clutching his stomach. "Oh God, my gut," he groaned, looking at Linda in horror. I was howling in my car, tears streaming down my face. Everything was going perfectly, realizing the door wasn't budging and any sudden move could be disastrous. Linda panicked, shouting, "The window!" Go around and climb in so you can unlock it from inside. Jeff, pale and sweating, tried to make a break for the back door, but his latex suit made every step a ridiculous struggle. Just as he reached the door, he tripped and crashed to the floor, prompting another thunderous fart. I almost fell off the driver's seat laughing. Meanwhile, Linda's situation hit crisis level. "Oh God, I'm going to crap myself," she blurted, desperately trying to unzip her leather outfit. The zipper was stuck. She paced from room to room, gasping for air, trying to peel the suit off, but it wouldn't budge. She was effectively trapped in her own fetish gear. Finally, she managed to rip part of it open, but the stomach pains had become unbearable, and there was no good place for what she needed to do. Her eyes landed on a large decorative vase in the corner, an old urn we'd bought ages ago. Apparently, ancient Greek art could take one for the team. She perched herself on the vase, the squelching noises echoing through the room. Linda, sitting on a vase, looked like some deranged goddess on a throne of shame. On another camera feed, Jeff had finally made it outside, clutching his belly and stumbling around the yard. He found the window, but it was sealed shut. He panicked, trying to pry it open or kick it, but no luck. Spotting a fallen tree branch, he bent down to pick it up, presumably to smash the glass, but his stomach betrayed him again. His face contorted, in agony as the feed shook while he tore at his latex suit, which clung like glue. "Yeah, that latex is airtight, buddy. You're basically vacuum sealed," I muttered through my laptop. Jeff refused to quit, red-faced and sweating. He finally ripped a hole near the crotch, then, with zero dignity left, squatted behind one of my decorative evergreens, a cute little tree I'd planted a year ago. That pitiful sight sealed my revenge. Linda on her vase, Jeff behind my tree, each stuck in their own rank predicament. I sat in my car, tears streaming from laughing so hard. Their non-traditional liberating night mission was utterly accomplished. Finally, it was time for the icing on the cake. I drove back to the house. There was Jeff, squatting under the tree in his shredded latex suit, looking like a miserable penguin on some twisted survival show. The smell was horrendous. I wrinkled my nose and stepped closer. He looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Alex, I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I can explain." I forced a grim smile. "Explain what exactly, Jeff? By the way, that tree is a year old. I planted it, watered it, took care of it, and you just turned it into your personal bathroom." "Don't worry, I'll help you out," I offered, holding out my hand as if to help him up. The moment he blinked in confusion, I shoved him hard. Jeff lost his balance and fell right into his own puddle of shame, groaning, possibly sobbing. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few choice photos for my souvenir collection. Then I went inside to find Linda still perched on that vase, utterly defeated, furious, humiliated, and broken. "Hi, Linda," I said, pretending to gag at the stench. "This place smells like nuclear fallout." "Congratulations," she whimpered, eyes blazing with rage. "Remember when we bought that vase and joked it'd last forever? Just like our marriage? Well, you proved us wrong, literally crapping all over everything we built." Her face went beet red as it dawned on her that I'd orchestrated the entire fiasco. "You sick bastard, you planned this? You're insane!" she screamed. I laughed, unfazed. "Me? Out of my mind? You two did this to yourselves with your big creative experiment? Sorry, but I'm out. You might want to call a hazmat team when you're done redecorating." Linda hurled insults as I left, but I didn't care. Deep down, I felt deeply satisfied. I got in my car and drove off to find a hotel for the night. Later, back in my cozy room, I reviewed the video footage, every second of their epic meltdown, recorded in all its disgraceful glory. I edited a few juicy highlights into short clips, my personal reel. The next day, Linda called, exhausted and furious. "Alex, you'll pay for this. I'm filing for divorce and going after everything in court." "Sure," I replied calmly. "Divorce is probably for the best. But watch your threats. You and Jeff might end up starring in another round of trouble." I hinted casually that I had a top-quality home movie starring them both. To emphasize my point, I sent her a teaser, The clip of Jeff ripping his latex suit and fertilizing my poor evergreen. But I didn't stop there. I dropped the same clip into a private online group Linda and her progressive friends used. They instantly recognized Jeff. The comments were brutal. Dude, new fetish much. What's with the latex meltdown, Jeff? Introducing the chocolate. Avenger. It was a total roast, and I suspect that was Linda's final straw. A few days later, she called again, no threats this time, asking about a quiet divorce settlement. Apparently going viral wasn't as glamorous as she'd thought. I just smiled, knowing I'd won. So that's my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Take care out there.